I mean, you're talking about the auto pen. Look, the auto pen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. This is a tremendous scandal. And I know the people on the other side of the, see that desk, that Resolute desk? Unfortunately, he used it before me. But, you know, we have our choice of 7 desks. They're all beautiful. But I chose the Resolute, and so did he, unfortunately. But the people on the other side of the Resolute desk, I know them. Lisa, the whole group, and they're no good. They're sick people. And I guarantee he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Happy Monday. Thank you all for spending part of your Monday night with us here on the Great America Show. A lot happening over the weekend. Most of you were probably checked out, not paying attention to the news. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately for you, it's my job to come here on Monday and tell you what happened over the weekend. Well, as you heard there, Joe Biden decided to do an interview with the New York Times. Now, you would think a man who's as complicit and corrupt as Joe Biden and had so much to worry about being exposed for the lies and cheating and stealing that he's done and him and his family have done, you would think that he would go off into the sunset to never be heard of again. But we've got some new information. The New York Times, all of a sudden, deciding now they want to partake in true, honest reporting. So the New York Times, I should say, reviewed some of the emails that the National Archives handed over to the Trump DOJ as part of their investigation into this auto pen scandal. The emails that they have reviewed revealed that Biden staffers made decisions to sign pardons with the auto pen without directly hearing the order from Joe Biden directly. It was revealed that Joe Biden did not approve each name for the pardon, and after changes were made about the specific inmates, Biden did not sign off on the revised list. Rather, his aides just ran the final version through the auto pen without Biden's approval. Now, this is according to the New York Times. Quote, Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people, his aides confirmed. Rather, after extensive discussion and different possible criteria, he signed off on the standards he wanted to be used to determine which convicts would qualify for a reduction in sentence. Even after Mr. Biden made that decision, one former aide said the Bureau of Prisons kept providing additional information about specific inmates, resulting in just small minor changes to that list. Rather than ask Mr. Biden, who is the president of the United States, to keep signing revised versions, his staff waited and then ran the final version through the auto pen, which they saw as a routine procedure. Routine procedure to issue pardons as a White House staffer? I can't say that's something I've ever thought about doing if I were a staffer. I think I'd probably end myself in a lot of trouble, as I should be if I did something like that. Now, Joe Biden, like I said, should have just went off into the sunset and kept his big, stupid mouth shut. But he's deciding not to do that. So now he's got himself in a little bit of hot water. Joe Biden has now hired himself a new personal attorney, Amy Jeffress of Hecker and Fink. He has been out one since he and his former personal lawyer, Bob Bauer, quietly parted ways months earlier. According to people familiar with the matter, Ms. Jeffress and Mr. Bauer declined to comment. Now, Bauer's relationship with Joe Biden was significantly cooled over the last year of his presidency, in part because of his extended clash with Hunter Biden and their defense team over the political risks that Joe Biden created by aggressive public relations tactics used to defend Hunter, including and not limited to that pardon that he issued first time, of course, presidents ever pardon their son or family member, but I guess he had to because he's a criminal, right? Now, Rand Paul is absolutely loving the news of all this. He's now saying that he will once again submit a criminal referral for Dr. Anthony Fauci to the Department of Justice after this New York Times piece ran. Rand Paul is tired of it. He's tired of the lies, and it now appears that Fauci may have been signed with that auto pen. I believe they said there was only one pardon that was signed by hand, and I believe it was the one of Hunter Biden. Everything else was done with the auto pen. So who's going to be responsible for this all? Who takes the fall? Were those pardons legit in the first place? I guess we're going to have to soon find out. I know everyone's sick of hearing about the Epstein files. We got some word this afternoon from Laura Trump on a podcast that the Trump administration will be releasing more documents pertaining to those Epstein files. This is Ghislaine Maxwell has offered voluntarily to come sit before Congress to give testimony on who and what was involved in these Jeffrey Epstein freak-off type things with children. Now, she's voluntarily doing this. She's serving a 20-year sentence right now. No deal was made for her to come before Congress. Nothing like that. No time off her sentence. All voluntarily, her doing it. But it's being reported that there's some members of Congress who don't want to see that happen, and they're doing all they can to block that. I think this is something that we should put out in the public domain and find out which members of Congress and which senators or which powerful politicians don't want to hear the truth. Because then I think it tells us all we need to know and who they are protecting. Just moments ago, folks, the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to proceed with the plan to dismantle the Department of Education. President Trump in March signing that executive order to dismantle it, saying that we've got to get the federal government out of our education. Of course, back in May, after President Trump issued this, U.S. District Judge Mayang John, a Biden appointee, issued one of those I words, an injunction blocking the Trump administration from doing just that. Turns out, just another Marxist liberal judge thinking their judge, jury, and verdict. The Trump DOJ appealed Judge George's injunction, and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals denied their request for an immediate administrative stay. So this afternoon, the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, allowed Trump to proceed with the mass firings at the Department of Education. Justice Sonia Sotomayor fumed in her dissent. Quote, this case arises out of the president's unilateral efforts to eliminate a cabinet-level agency established by Congress nearly a half-century ago, the Department of Education. It's only going to be the Department of Education for a little bit longer before it's dismantled. What these liberals don't realize is nothing changes. It's just going to be given to the states, just as Roe v. Wade. If you live in a liberal state and you want to indoctrinate your kids, that's what's going to happen. Now, if you want to send your kid for a good education, you send them to a place who's got a Republican governor who cares about the well-being, safety, and education of our children. If you want a shitty education, you send them to school right here in New York. And that's just the way it's going to go. So it's unclear to me why these Marxist liberals would be so against that. They should be all for the federal government out of their business. If New York wants to run buck wild with their liberal nonsense, that's fine. They'll continue to be the greatest real estate agents for the state of Florida and North Carolina and South Carolina and other places where you can go live and be free. Arizona. I mean, so many options where you can go to live a free life and not have to worry about the government being down your back. So great on President Trump. Folks, in just a few moments, we're going to be joined just over the weekend. We, of course, passed the 1 year of that assassination attempt on President Trump. And the death of Corey Compatore, that firefighter who was innocently murdered in the stands by that stray bullet. We're going to be joined by Real Clear Politics national political correspondent Susan Crabtree. She's got a great new piece out today discussing the Secret Service and what has really changed since that incident a year ago. You're going to be surprised to learn the changes that took place. And they weren't for the better. We'll tell you that. We're going to take a quick break here on the other side. Susan Crabtree joins us to take all of this up and much, much more, folks. Please stay with us.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillow is only $14.98. Queens, $18.98. King size, only $1 more. Body pillows, $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Susan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today on the Great America Show. I want to start with first your new article that you have out that I read this morning and I thought was absolutely brilliant, and I think it demands some answers. The article is on realclearpolitics.com. 1 year after Butler, Secret Service, FBI face new questions. Give us a little bit first of a background on what prompted you to write this. Now that we're a year into this thing, we still know nothing about Matthew Crooks, know nothing about his family. His body, we know, was cremated just days after he did this. All the inconsistencies behind us. Tell us first, what prompted you now a year later to write this?
Well, I've been one of the reporters, if I do to my own horn, that's been most aggressive on this story because I had sources dating back to the Obama administration during the Cartagena prostitute scandal when agents were found guilty of engaging in legal prostitution in Colombia, but it was still a huge scandal. So all those sources after Butler came out of the woodwork for me, and I started reporting from the plane on the way to the RNC convention, and some of the same issues are still relevant today. The Jill Biden event in Pittsburgh that had more post standards that I first reported on J14, the AGR building not being covered, just so many cascading problems with the communication system, 2 separate command centers. It just was a complete and utter breakdown. So I have been pursuing this for months and months and months and breaking stories along the way. So there was no brainer that I was going to do something on the anniversary. Now, what I had on the anniversary broke Thursday beforehand is that the suspensions were coming out. I knew about the suspensions 2 weeks ago. The Secret Service was not forthcoming in what they were telling me. In fact, they were not forthcoming to Senator Rand Paul, as we saw in the report that he produced, he released on Sunday. So these suspensions, the biggest news out of these suspensions is they're slaps on the wrist for junior agents, except for the Pittsburgh office, which is taking the fall. The junior agents had supervisors on the Donald Trump detail. 2 of the supervisors were on the walkthroughs with this junior agent named Mio Perez. Mio Perez was the wrong person for this. It was absolutely had no business leading security, heading up devising, leading the advanced team for Butler. She had 3.5 years of experience in the Secret Service, but 0 experience conducting Secret Service security for a rally of this magnitude.
Is this the woman who was in the picture with Donald Trump, like ducking?
No. No. She's that woman is Kate. She's a well-respected agent. This woman wasn't pictured very much. In fact, the New York Post, after I reported this, I reported all the names of the people that were suspended on Thursday morning after they leaked the story. After I was trying to get them to produce the story to me, they leaked it to CBS News or gave it to them. The Secret Service did that night. Then the next morning, I decided, okay, I'm going to go through and name names and say all of the stories that I was going to work with you on these pieces. But if you're going to do this, I will go ahead and move forward with the names. But some of these names have been out there in my pieces. But this particular woman is a very junior agent, as I mentioned, named Mio Perez. She's known for partying. She is known for posting from her assignments, including those at Mar-a-Lago on social media, has had several complaints against her about that. I've written about that before. She's just not a serious agent. But there were supervisors too, including one that was an inspector assigned from the inspection division because this rally, there was such an acute Iranian threat hanging over this rally, and that they sent counter snipers for the first time, and that it was such a big rally. So those supervisors signed off on the site plan. In fact, Sean Curran, the current director, signed off on the security plan for Butler, even though there was a discrepancy about how that AGR building was going to be covered. And so did these other supervisors, Nick Menster and Nick Olszewski. They did not get disciplined. In fact, they got big promotions. One of them is number 2 on Eric and Laura Donald Trump detail right now. And the other one is the head of the inspections division, which I just said to you, is in charge of maintaining accountability and integrity in the Secret Service. This is a huge conflict of interest because Sean Curran is really good friends with these guys. And the Pittsburgh field office, all 4 of those agents took the fall. They got some form of suspension. Even though it was a slap on the wrist, it does not look good for your career to have an unpaid suspension of 10 to 42 days.
So you've got these suspensions. You've got, I guess it was the deputy director who came out and said, we're not going to fire our way out of this, which is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. The Secret Service is probably the most well-trained, or at least what I believed was the most well-trained organization in this country. I would say probably up there with the likes of Navy SEALs, being what their job is, to protect the most powerful man of the free world. Yet on that day in Butler, you had 3 or 4 female agents. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be female agents, but they shouldn't be a 5'4" female agent should not be protecting a man who's 6'2". It just makes zero sense to me. That's number one. So clearly that's completely ass backwards. But then you've got, like I said, I guess, what is he? The assistant deputy director of the FBI, who's saying we're not going to fire our way. So what accountability do you get? You suspend a guy for 10 to whatever you said, 10 to 40 days, a month, whatever it is. No pay. Okay. He gets his job back. He still gets to accumulate towards his pension. If he doesn't leave Secret Service, he'll do his 20 years. He'll get his pension. He'll go get a $150,000, $200,000 a year private security job when he leaves. Where is the repercussions here for almost having a man assassinated? Number one. Number two, how is Donald Trump not outraged by this?
He has been outraged by it, and he has been outraged by the Secret Service's lack of transparency and lack of accountability. He has since been briefed, and he says he's okay with it. He's got a lot of things on his plate right now, as you know. Yeah. There's too many controversies going on, but he did say he feels better about it after being briefed. It was a complete failure on many, many levels. But here's what we need to take away from this. If you want to keep Donald Trump safe and have our continuity of government safe and people being able to go to rallies without fear of being killed, assassinated themselves, murdered, then we need to improve the security. We need to improve the culture at the Secret Service. And as I'm getting onto your show, the news is breaking that a Secret Service agent was catfished by Project Veritas. And that just, to me, it's just part and parcel of all of the reporting I've done for more than a decade on the Secret Service. These agents, the problem is there's a pretension problem at the Secret Service because after Cartagena, they were dragged through the mud on that. And they just have a very difficult job, and they're stretched really thin. And a lot of their job is boring. You know, they're not like Navy SEALs where they're highly trained, yeah, but they don't get on missions. They don't practice all these missions all the time. Most of their job is standing there waiting for something bad to happen, and then they act, right? But before that, most of it's boring, and it's a lot of travel on the road. There's a lot of divorces. It's one of the highest rates of divorces and suicides. So the morale has been low for a very long time. We need to improve the morale and improve the standards, but it's hard when you have a retention problem to improve the standards. And you layer on top of that this huge DEI problem that Sean Curran inherited from Director Cheadle, who was a debacle, and she completely changed the Secret Service, signed on to this 30 by 30 pledge, have 30% women in the Secret Service agents and officers by 2030, and she was at 24% by the time she left. So, and it's not merit-based. I don't care. A woman can do it if she can do the training and if she's the right size and she can pass all of her tests. I'm all for it. But it has to be a merit-based, and it has to. In the Secret Service's case, you have to be able to carry Donald Trump horizontal out of a situation where there could be fire going off at the. It could be like a military type situation. So it's layers of problems that are still being unwound at the Secret Service, and I do think Sean Curran has made some improvements, but I don't think he's even capable of making all the improvements that need to be made in a year.
Well, especially because half of what you're saying is these people are his friends. How do you go ahead and fire your friends? I guess it makes it hard. I'd realized something was wrong back probably last year around February, March. I was in Mar-a-Lago. We were doing an interview with President Trump and walking in and out of the room, no issues, no pat downs, nothing. And I'm saying to myself, I know I'm safe. I know I have no ill will towards this man. I love him. But like, how do you know that I'm not coming in here with a gun or something? Like, it's crazy to me to think that you'd let me go in there without any sort of repercussions. And I was with Lou Dobbs, and I said to him, I said, Lou, this doesn't make any sense how I know, you guys are good friends. We see him all the time, but it's still not a security precaution when you're sitting there with the former, he was the former president at that time, but still it rang a weird bell to me. Then we took a walk with the president around Mar-a-Lago. It was just the president, myself, Lou Dobbs, and his wife. And I said, this still doesn't seem right to me that this should be, there should be Secret Service with us just in case. They don't know me. They don't know, anything could happen. And that's when I really started to think something was really going on. But I also realized something different there, Susan, was there was two types of security there. He had Secret Service, and then he had his own private security. So I don't know if there was some sort of lapse or something that Donald Trump figured out on why he would have his own security and why he would have Secret Service there.
That is so interesting to me because, as you read in my story, as of December of last year, Donald Trump was having a Christmas party with his detail after they had been through so much turmoil. And he said, as you can see in this room, there's one person who's not with us today. And there's a reason for that. And everybody knew that that was Mio Perez, the one with the partying reputation, who was not there because he banned her from his presence to being anywhere near him, according to multiple sources who talked to me about that. So he had a trust issue at that time. And so he was hiring his own security. That's interesting to me because I've asked about that several times, never got a straight answer about it, because it was obvious in the final days from multiple sources who told me about that there were people around him that were not Secret Service. Yeah. If you had 2 assassination attempts, okay, so they didn't learn from the first one enough. The second one, they didn't go and sweep the perimeter of that golf course. And that should have been a no-brainer. And then they tried to blame it on, it was an off the record, so it was like an unannounced event. I don't care. Yeah. Then you just tell the president, we're going to have to sweep, and that's going to take an extra 45 minutes.
He knows. He's been down this road a few times before. The reason I was told about the part of the reason for the other security was because as he wasn't still president of the United States at the time, Secret Service was only responsible for X, Y, and Z. And the reason he had the private security was to fill in the lapse. And I guess it was maybe to guard the grounds of Mar-a-Lago. I'm not entirely sure. This is over a year ago, but nonetheless, it's still very interesting considering all the threats that we know were against him. Let's go back to what you had mentioned breaking this afternoon from Project Veritas. Secret Service agent, his name is Mark Hendrickson, invited a female Project Veritas journalist to the White House without ever meeting her before. I assume it was on some sort of dating app. Text messages with Hendrickson revealed the agent engaging in egregious violations of Secret Service safety confidentiality protocols without knowing the identity of the female journalist. He invited her to come say hi at the White House, a secure facility central to national security, sent a photo from the White House boasting that he works there every day, disclosed sensitive operational details stating that, quote, I'm in protection, I travel with protectees, and I provide access control wherever they are, made disparaging comments about the commander-in-chief, claiming President Trump is, quote, doing a lot of wacky shit right now. This is a Secret Service agent. So going back to the assistant director saying we're not going to fire our way out of this, then what are you supposed to do, Mr. Deputy Director, whatever your title is?
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is, you have Director Cheadle, and are they yanking her security clearance? Is there any repercussions for anybody? No. Because Ron Rowe lied to Congress several times, because I know personally, because he lied about questions they were asking, citing my reporting. And I have the sources, and I absolutely trust my sources, multiple sources, about his role in denying security assets to Donald Trump too. So they're not willing. Guess where Ron Rowe is right now?
Probably in a really high well-paid position.
This will blow your mind. This is swampy. I broke this story this weekend. Michael Chertoff's group. He's with the Chertoff group. Chertoff worked for at George W. Bush as the second Homeland Security Secretary, and also worked for President Obama. So he just wrote out his time. And in fact, Ron Rowe decided he was going to stay on the government dime as long as he possibly could, and was listed as a senior advisor till about a month or so ago. When he first went into private practice for his own and that put out his own shingle, and all of a sudden he gets hired by the Chertoff group. So it is, there's no accountability. And Helen Comparatori talked about that. And she said, to me, it's garbage. It's just the Secret Service is garbage. Well, that's sad because there's a lot of dedicated people there who are incensed by that. I put out a lot of comments by Secret Service agents who had messages for Helen Comparatori over the weekend and said they are incensed and they hope she sues the pants off the Secret Service, and gave her some advice on how to do so. But they basically said that this is like the idea that that her husband's life was only worth 10 to 42 days of unpaid suspension is like a Babylon Bee headline. It's ridiculous and it's sad, and it would be, it's not funny at all, but it would be slightly funny if it weren't true. And he said, we need to do better for the Comparatori family. And Donald Trump, of course, himself, who was, traumatized and almost died with a too close for comfort situation there. So if we care about our continuity of government, we're going to just stop letting the Secret Service hide behind the word secret. They have spent an inordinate amount of time going after my sources, or trying to, and putting watermarks on emails and doing witch hunts and hauling people into that they don't even know who my sources are, but they're trying to find out. So they have witch hunts and hauling people in before the inspections committee and all this business when they can't even provide accountability for their own mistakes.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
I tell this to everybody. I tell them I don't lie, because then you got to remember your lies and cover your tracks and remember when you're lying and when you're not lying. It seems like it's the same thing with these people. Instead of fixing the culture and getting this thing on the right path and the right track, they just want to go after innocent people who want to make a change, people who want to make a difference in society so that this stuff doesn't happen. I mean, this man was brutally murdered. I think he was shot in his head from that stray bullet. I mean, Helen is going to be on the show this week. We're going to have her here, so we're going to get her take on this. But it's just mind-blowing to me. What more has to be done? How many more botched assassination attempts need to happen? How many more innocent people need to be shot in the head for culture to change, rather than coming out after people for retribution, for them wanting change for the better of the country and for the better protection of the president? And it's not just Donald Trump, it's any president. You'd mentioned earlier about the hood rats outside of Obama's house that were wrestling each other, those 2 women. I mean, you go down the list. It's just the incident down in South America, or there was another one, I think last year or 2 years ago, where they crashed a car at the White House. It's like time and time again, they're drafting the dumbest people they could find. It's not all of them, but what's the saying? All it takes is one to ruin it for the rest of them.
Yeah, of course, every organization has bad apples, but this is
sure.
too many bad apples are spoiling the whole bunch right now. And as we know, as I reported in my story, they lowered the standards so much that only 30% of the incoming recent class, had college graduate degrees or college degrees, compared to the FBI that everybody has to have a bachelor's degree. So that's just one element. When we're talking about the misplaced priorities, last year under the old regime, you had Secret Service agents going to an LGBTQ plus event at Disney World in the middle of the height in October, when they were complaining of their frenetic campaign schedule, and when they were complaining to Congress that they needed more money for more resources and manpower. You cannot make this stuff up. There was a Secret Service agent that reported on breastfeeding 5 minutes before Donald Trump was supposed to arrive. The 5-minute mark is a very critical time for Secret Service agents, and she was in an emergency room where they would take the president if there was some kind of problem with security. We have an Iranian threat that's acute, and it's so acute that last year during the campaign, some of the Secret Service agents shot out of the moonroof of the Beast at a drone because they thought it could be Iran. And as you know, this week, Iran is talking about how they have every capability to drone Donald Trump when he's sunbathing at Mar-a-Lago. Now, I think that's a lot of bluster. I think the Secret Service has improved their drone capability, but last year it was a joke. They couldn't get the drone up. The mitigation system, they couldn't get their drone up. The mitigation system was ridiculous. They were on the helpline of the Secret Service, and I had 1 hour of terrible experience before they sent him out to Butler, their drone operator. So I probably know too much about the subject, but I can just go chapter and verse on what's not happening. They did not provide me the retention numbers from what time when Sean Curran arrived and where we are now. They wouldn't talk about why they still have trans agents getting special privileges in the Secret Service. They don't want to address the issues head on. They are trying to avoid the inevitable, and then things like Project Veritas break, and I'm not surprised. I am hardly surprised. When I saw that, I just thought, yeah, I could. The thing is, my auditors and I, we have tons of tawdry things we could break about the Secret Service, and we've decided not to break every tawdry thing there is to break on them. But you know what? Project Veritas, more power to them, because this is intrinsic. It's an endemic problem in the Secret Service. They have a culture problem, and they need to raise their standards. And when they raise their standards, the ironic thing is when they do that, they're going to get better agents applying. It's going to just improve morale. And all of the senior agents, they have a brain drain going on, because the senior male agents especially are just like, we're not putting up with this anymore. We're going to retire if we can, or we're going to go to the DEA. We're going to go do drug enforcement, because we don't want to be at a place where the morale's so low and they're stretching us so thin, and we have failures on our record now. They don't like that, especially the guys that have higher standards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You should mention the Iranian sunbathing comment. I think they got that completely wrong. I don't think Donald Trump sunbathes unless he can wear his suit and tie doing so. So I don't think that's entirely true. The other thing, too, is the thought of Secret Service shooting their guns. I'd be scared to see what will come out. Sean Curran, who's now the head of the Secret Service, was he lead detail for Donald Trump that day?
That's right. He was. And that's the problem, because he signed off on the security plan the day before the rally, along with his two other buddies, supervisors. And now they have the big promotions. He let the Pittsburgh office take the fall, and the supervisors there were held accountable, even though they had much more minor roles in supervising. And here's again, we had the same refrain. We thought that had been jettisoned. A former president doesn't get security assets as many as a sitting president and vice president, even a first lady. That is a ridiculous statement when it comes to Donald Trump, as we mentioned before. And yet, if you see the suspension records on the Pittsburgh guys, the supervisors, it says, because this was a former president's event, then the field office has to be held responsible. That is a joke. The counter sniper there, the supervisor for the counter snipers, the hero of Butler, who took the kill shot on Thomas Crooks. He was actually a supervisor. He was actually part of the problem because he didn't recognize there was nobody on the AGR building either. He didn't tell Sean Curran on the stage, hey, I know that I've just been notified by the local law enforcement that we have a guy with a rangefinder running around and we're looking for him. So don't bring Donald Trump onto the stage. When the senators and the staff interviewed him, the counter sniper, his name is David King, who took the kill shot, they said, why didn't you tell when you were looking for Thomas Crooks, why didn't you bother just, picking up your radio and telling the shift agents, including Sean Curran, who was leading the shift? Obviously, he's the boss. He was the innermost circle around Donald Trump, and he made the decision on whether to bring Trump out on the stage. And because the counter sniper didn't bother to tell the shift agent, nobody knew. So they brought him out on stage to almost be assassinated. It's just unbelievable.
To backtrack on this, so they tracked this guy all day from the second he got there. They were following him. They knew he was a freak. They knew he was up to no good.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did they lose track of him, and what point did they pick him back up again?
So they lost track of him. Okay, so they're the two counter snipers that were positioned themselves inside the AGR building instead of on top of the roof. They actually saw him running around with the rangefinder. So they went down to go find him. They took photos of him, and one of them left their post to go down to find him. They lost him around the building, and that's when he ended up crawling up on the air conditioner and going up on the roof. And by that time, they were circulating the photo of him, but it didn't get to the counter sniper until 5:45. So this started around, I believe, around 5, when they were chasing him, is around 5:20ish. So 5:45. At that point, they could have called, this counter sniper could have called the shift agent and said, hey, we have a serious problem. Do not bring Donald Trump on the stage. If you look at that testimony from the counter sniper, he said, there was other people can do that. I was just doing my job. Well, no, you're a supervisor, and your job is to prevent Donald Trump from being assassinated. And the best way to prevent him from being assassinated is not to put him on the stage. So it was before the event. That was a critical time period. And so everybody has blood on their hands. There's so many people, even the White House, I will tell you, there's the campaign staff. It's not the White House, the campaign staff. From what Grassley's report points out, and I did a little reporting about this last year, there were farm equipment that the Secret Service wanted to cover the sight lines from the AGR building. They wanted to obstruct the sight lines, but the campaign staff didn't like that. Bad on optics. Now, this stuff goes on all the time. These kind of negotiations go on all the time between optics and security, between the campaign staff and the Secret Service. But it looked like the campaign staff won out on that, or the Secret Service didn't push back hard enough. So that was also an issue. Let's all, why don't we err on the side of caution now? Why don't we err on the side of security? Who cares so much about the optics? I think that, when you have an Iranian threat hanging over your head, and the campaign, I don't know if they knew that. I think Donald Trump probably knew it, but the campaign staff probably didn't know that. So there was a lot of people who weren't read in on that Iranian threat, including the person in charge of the security, this Mio Perez that I talked about. Now that's kind of a cop-out because certainly the Pittsburgh office wasn't read in on that. And that's another problem. If you have an Iranian threat, then you need to tell everybody involved in the security, even the LEOs, even the local law enforcement. You should tell everybody because maybe they don't get the classified briefing, but just tell them there's a heightened threat right now, and we need to be very serious about the lines of sight. It's just multiple failures
that don't change without any repercussions, and there's no repercussions. So I guess we can expect, hopefully, no assassination attempts, but the culture only to get worse. So we just passed the 1-year anniversary over the weekend of the Butler shooting. 2 years ago, around the same time period, you had the cocaine in the White House, which the Secret Service somehow managed to screw up that investigation too. Nobody held accountable, nothing. The cocaine was destroyed, they say, probably up someone's nostrils. Still don't know anything about it.
I actually know, we don't know who it was, but I know I've written a story about that. You can get it on realclearpolitics.com. If you go under writers, click my name. Just about a month ago, I wrote a story about the facts versus fiction on the cocaine gate. And what happened was they didn't really want to find out whose it was. They knew every single person that went into that door. If you believe that the cocaine was found in this locker in the vestibule with no key, if you believe that, which I guess I tend to believe that after really looking and scrutinizing everything and interviewing multiple forensics experts. But if you believe that, they still knew who was going into that vestibule area. And they tell me, the Secret Service tells me it's about 500 people that day because there were VIP tours, even though it was the weekend before the 4th of July. Okay. So we don't know if someone was bringing it in for somebody else like Hunter Biden. We don't know. Hunter Biden was there that Friday. But say, yeah, the Friday, then they went to away for the weekend, and then they came back for 4th of July, the whole family. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't expect anybody could have brought it in for somebody else. Okay, it was a very small bag. So they said, oh, we didn't find enough DNA on that. Insufficient DNA is what they told me, or told everybody when they quickly closed that investigation after 11 days. The quickest I've ever seen an investigation close in DC in my lifetime. I've covered DC for 30 years. So you can't even do the paperwork in that time. But so they closed it down 11 days, and they had insufficient evidence that they found. Okay, they still could have interviewed people. They didn't interview anybody in the lineup. They didn't break it down and say, oh, some of you are staffers, some of you are family members. We're not going to interview grandma who's coming in for a VIP, but let's interview some people. They also found DNA, and the DNA itself was in tubes. Okay, so what's in those tubes? They still retained those tubes. I discovered they did, I believe, destroy the cocaine. I saw the FOIA document. I FOIA'd the documents. I have all the documents, and there's a chain of custody where they sent it to the DC Fire Department and DC Police to incinerate it, because they have an incinerator that they use for this that's EPA approved and DEA approved. So I do believe that took place. But Cheadle, there's a big controversy in the Secret Service because Director Cheadle wanted that destroyed, and there was some pushback in the uniform division, and those people who pushed back got punished, didn't get promotions, and other people did. So it's once again this kind of, they didn't want to find out. They closed it quickly. And I really want that FBI report about the lab document on how much DNA they really did find. That's what I want. And I've been asking the FBI for that and the Secret Service, and not forthcoming yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you do a DNA test and it comes back inconclusive, I say, okay, dump the case, do whatever you've got to do, and move on with it. But that wasn't the case, as you just clearly laid out there. Just another misstep by the Secret Service. I want to turn to something before we wrap up. We got a 6-3 decision from the Supreme Court on President Trump now being allowed to start dismantling the Department of Education. You've got a new book out, pretty decently new, I would say, a few months, but worth the read, and we recommend it to you all highly, folks. You get on Amazon, wherever you guys get your books. Fool's Gold: The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Foreword written by our good friend here on the Great America Show, the great Peter Schweitzer. I want to get your take on this Supreme Court ruling. 6-3, Sotomayor is in fumes, absolutely beside herself, because now Trump could start dismantling this organization that's ruined so many states, California, one of them in particular.
Yeah, we spend the most amount on individual students, of one of the most of any states, and we get the worst outcomes.
Yeah, for sure.
So, to me, it's great that the Department of Education is doing a great job in terms of dismantling DEI, looking at higher education and going after these universities that had these terrible anti-Semitic rallies. And they're permitting these students that we allow in this country on visa exchanges and other waivers and visas, special visas, and now they're in our country destroying it. And also, I really appreciate their pushing back on California. They have withheld on the trans issue in women's sports. They've really taken an aggressive stance. They got Pennsylvania to overturn their policies, and they're going to apologize to Riley Gaines. So we're seeing some big changes. California, of course, is still pushing back on the trans issue in women's sports. And so we'll see if they withhold the funds, the Department of Education. There's other funds, there's $6.8 billion funds for the next year in grants that the Department of Education's holding above many states' heads. And I wrote about that recently too. And some people aren't going to be able to be hired next year in California. They're freaking out because, they're going to have to pay for it themselves. My daughter has been in the public schools in California, and I'm going to tell you, the woke kind of attitudes and policies in the California public schools, and now there's a mandate that you have some type of DEI literature to graduate from high school. It's just off the charts, and they can get in. I just think that the Department of Education is doing what they should be doing, establishing national standards and block granting some of this money to the states to do with what they will. Unfortunately, in California, it's not going to be a good thing. So they're trying to get California to wake up and get rid of some of these woke policies that are just not doing anything for their students' performance. It's all about, social emotional learning and not performance.
Folks, that book, you can get it on Amazon, wherever you get your book, Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traders Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All, by Susan Crabtree. Susan, it was a delight talking with you today, I have to say. As I told you before you got on the show, I've been reading your work for months. You do a terrific job. There's very few people out there like you. It's a lot of the mainstream garbage who just regurgitate the same old garbage. Someone like you is unique in the sense we get a different perspective and we get a different view on things, almost like it's first person, like you're there, not the same regurgitated garbage that you read on Fox News or CNN or MSN, whatever news organization you go to get your news. So where can people find your work? Where can they follow you, Susan?
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you and your dedication so much. You can follow me on X at Susan Crabtree, and you can go to Real Clear Politics. If you click on writers and click on my name, you can see all the stories that I've done over the last 10 years there.
Susan Crabtree, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks to Susan Crabtree, folks, and thank you all for being with us today. You can read all of her work, realclearpolitics.com. You go over to the Writers tab and you click on Susan Crabtree. She does a terrific job in original pieces. Very, very brilliant author and editor. Folks, we hope to see you back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, where our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. We'll meet you back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. Good night, everybody.